Hello and welcome to Unsourced Wall. My name is Elvis, and as always, I'm your host. Okay, so we are here at the start of Season 5. That is insane. We're heading straight into autumn. Just like last week, there are still no new shows going on, so that's going to be empty. And well, let's see how this one flows. First off, we have some movie news. The first of which is that apparently The Flash has found an entirely new director. I think it was the one that was rumored before, Andy Muschietti, who directed the new It movies. I don't think he's a great pick. I thought those films, or at least the first one, was just awful and terrible, so I'm not that excited to see him take the reins of The Flash. Then again, it's an entirely new genre, it's an entirely different kind of subset where he needs to use different skills, so it might turn out well. Overall though, I don't expect him to stay that long. This movie is cursed, and I have no expectations that any director is actually going to see it through to completion. So fingers crossed, I hope it goes well, but I'm not expecting much or if anything at all. Next up, we have the interesting news that Taika Waititi has joined the cast of Suicide Squad 2, which is kind of insane. I mean, that is just a really funny thing to get around to doing, having two of the more fan-acclaimed directors recently of the MCU in this movie participating in it. That just seems really funny. Honestly, I have no idea who he could be, but my hopes, and I would give anything for this, would be for him to be the writer. That character that was Grant Morrison's self-insert into Animal Man that then got transported into Suicide Squad during the Wonder Woman War of the Gods crossover. Like, that would be funny, that would be referential, and I think it would just be a little bit more off the wall than expected, but I think it can handle it. And I think that would be a really inventive use of having, him cameo or whatever in it. Slight gag like that before being killed off would be kind of hilarious. And speaking of Suicide Squad 2 casting news, apparently Nathan Fillion has joined the cast too. I really hope he's not Peacemaker because that seems to be like the only thing he could be. He might also be King Shark because I know that there's like some rumors that they're trying to go for a more folksy twang accent for him. Anything but Peacemaker, because I think Peacemaker really needs a more stoic edge to him, and Nathan Fillion really can't pull that off at all. But speaking of King Shark, there is one last rumor that I want to get to, and that is that comedian Steve Agee, who played one of Sarah Silverman's annoying neighbors, the one that wasn't Brian Posehn on her Comedy Central sitcom, will be playing or at least voicing King Shark, and I could see that far more than any of the other two actors we've mentioned so far, so I hope that's true. Again, I think one of the other last rumors was that it was going to be Michael Rooker, which would have been the perfect casting, but I don't know, fingers crossed. I hope that this turns out good, and my only expectation is that James Gunn is able to really do something special and unique and memorable with this sequel, so best of luck to them. Next up, we have this report that John Watts, who directed Far From Home, is not going to be returning for Spider-Man 3, or is unlikely to return for it, which is honestly really great because that movie was a pile of trash. So if they are going to be moving forward with at least some semblance of Tom Holland's incarnation in whatever Sony-only version of Spider-Man 3 is going to happen, then I'm glad that it's not going to be taking that dead weight with them because that was just awful. I'm glad that one of the first news items we're getting out of this split is an actually positive one, so that bodes well for the future. So glad to hear it. And lastly, for movie news, we have the report that the new cut from Disney, ordered by Disney, of the New Mutants is testing with audiences, which is good to hear. But the thing is that we've heard that about every single cut. We've heard that about the coming of age YA novel movie original theatrical cut that was supposed to come out 3 years ago. We've heard that about the recut, more horror-focused Joss Boone preferred cut that happened after that. We've heard that about this cut, which is also meant to be more Joss Boone horror-focused, but also meant to cut out more overt references to the Fox-Men universe. So there's really nothing here to actually grab onto other than the fact that they are testing new cuts of this movie, which makes me more hopeful that this is actually going to come out, but I'm not expecting much. I really haven't. I don't think this is ever going to come out, but at least they're moving through the motions, and at some point, someday in the future, we might get some kind of very delayed, stilted, and bare bones release. And I'll see it. I would definitely see it then, if nothing else. So fingers crossed. And we only have one item for TV news this week, which is that the Disney Plus MCU series have added a couple of new faces to their roster, and that would be She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, some rumblings of a Miss America series, and Moon Knight, of all things. And you know what? I'm probably not going to see any of these because I have zero care for the MCU moving forward, outside of maybe like one or two things that I am seriously hoping turn out to be good. Honestly, I hope them the best. I just cannot get it up for them. I wish them well because I think they have the potential to be really great. Fingers crossed, and good luck to the people working on that. And lastly, we head on into comic news, and the first thing here is that we have Gary Frank playing some sort of power move here against a lot of his critics and detractors, because there was something going on last week where he had to get really snippy at a bunch of fanboys really going at him for delays on Doomsday Clock, which I don't think he should be held fully responsible for, because there's a lot going on there. Even Shazam has been delayed indefinitely, which could mean anything. So I'm not sure just putting the blame solely on Gary Frank. He has a particular style, and that takes as long as it has to. I guess he got really annoyed, so he posted a picture of his own comp copy of Doomsday Clock number 11 saying, "See, it does exist," and he blocked a bunch of people, which I thought was hilarious. And you know what? Good for you, Gary Frank. That was amazing, and I hope Doomsday Clock finally finishes, if not only so you can move on to other things that are worth more of your time than something that has been already retconned out of existence. And lastly, we have the coming up and bubbling up of more accusations against writer Brian Wood from other people in the industry regarding sexual harassment and forced sexual conduct. And well, he's lost a bunch of work right now. I think a couple of his minis have been canceled, and a bunch of companies like Dark Horse have stated that they do not wish to pursue any other projects of him at this time or in the future because of this. And I have to say, well, that's great, because we've been hearing all these accusations for years now. I think they came up like 2 years ago in full force, but nothing really happened. And now we've had even worse ones, and I think were even mentioned the last time these bubbled up. And you know what? That's great, and I hope that they can find some sort of closure and justice, because some of these ones are just beyond the pale, and they're making me really sick to even think about. So I'm glad that people are taking steps to really distance and shutter off Brian Wood at this point, because honestly, what else is there to do? And I hope that they find some measure of peace. Alright, so now we can head on to what I read this week. First off, we have Red Hood and the Outlaws number 37, and this is going to be kind of a short one because it is a short issue overall. Nothing really weighty or substantial happens in it. What we do get is pretty much a by the numbers roster introduction of the new kids, this so-called Generation Outlaw that Red Hood is teaching to be better supervillains. I don't think any of them are at all memorable, but they each have some sort of unique gimmick or personality, format, or beat to keep the issue afloat with a kind of dynamic. Not to disparage on it too much, but the real heart of at least this side is not really in these kids or getting to know them, but in seeing how Red Hood is relating himself to them and where he wants to go with this mentorship role that's been foisted on him by Lex Luthor. It's a nice return to form for this series, since he had similar problems dealing with Bizarro, especially after this kind of stilted stoicness of both the Outlaw on the Run arc and the whole Prince of Gotham side story. But what really makes this issue is that we're actually getting the Artemis and Bizarro subplot, and they are, like always, just delightful. I think that Lobdell said they'd be back in full force by October or November, so it's good that we don't have to wait that long to even get a little bit of them, and because every page with them is just full of great gags, and they're all stuffed into a really practical 3 pages. So I mean, I just can't wait to see them finally reintegrated into the team, into the dynamic, into the book, and actually get moving on with what made this series so special to begin with. And hopefully Generation Outlaw, even if they don't get all killed off, they can be part of this whole Dark Justice League thing that Lobdell has been trying to do for years now, as maybe the Dark Teen Titans. And I could see that happening, and if he finally does get around to actually fulfilling the potential of this series, I hope that happens. So this series has regained some heart of itself, and it's not the best, but it's a genuine uptick from what I've read before. Overall, 1 thumb up, 1 thumb middle. Next up, we have Dial H for Hero number 6, which is the final issue of this first season of Quinones and Humphreys' classic Dial H for Hero story that they've been working with here. And it was amazing, and so much well worth the build up with the characterizations and the tact and grace that they've been handling these themes that the leads were, being saddled with. Miguel and Summer have been so entertaining and so engaging to see grow and explored and developed with actual pathos and character density. They're fully formed and tangible and are the bedrock of this series. Much like the previous Dial H run from China Melville, when you're dealing with this kind of conceit, this kind of gimmick in modern comics, you have to handle the question of what this sort of power means to the characters themselves, like at the heart of it, at the core of it. And our previous run answered it perfectly, with the fat, middle-aged, depressed main character realizing the most powerful transformation that he could do would be able to turn into himself and be okay with that and be at peace with that. And well, if it's not broke, then don't fix it. So Humphreys and Quinones come to the same exact conclusion and handle it with aplomb. Like I said, it's perfection. It's always been perfection. The rest of this issue is just a hugely fun amount of references and homages as Metropolis tears itself apart with different sorts of characters being called into existence. Quinones is a master, and there's no better example of that in this issue. This is a spread of art that should have taken an entire team to do, not just one person. So you know what? It's amazing. It's awesome. It's wonderful, and it is just inspiring. It's a solid ending to this first season, but if it hadn't been solicited for a second one to start up almost immediately after this, it might have been a little bit more lackluster than it ended up being. But knowing that there's going to be a next issue really soon makes it a little bit softer. 2 thumbs up, and I can't wait to see where this goes next. It has been a modern day masterpiece, and I do not feel wrong saying that in the least. And lastly, we have Spider-Man Life Story number 6, which is the end of this Elseworlds What If generation style look over the life of Peter Parker. It's been a surprisingly entertaining ride. It's had a fair amount of lulls and dragging beats, but also some incredibly touching and hearty moments too. This finale is more on the former side, but it tries really hard to be on the latter. Unfortunately, it just comes off a bit too cliche and ordinary to really make an impact. I don't want to disparage it too much. As a finale to a miniseries that had so many jumps and had to integrate so much lore into itself in some sort of way, it works. It's just not that engaging or exciting. It just feels like more of the same. There's one beautiful moment though, one perfect moment, and they keep it to the end, and so they make that landing on their feet more than anything else. The rest is more or less unmemorable, but it's comfy and it's readable and it's enjoyable. So even if it didn't reach the heights that the series has made evident that it can, at the very least it's not, lackluster or overall disappointing. It's a fun miniseries and I don't regret reading a page of it. Overall, kudos to Zdarsky and Bagley for pulling it off. 1 thumb up, 1 thumb middle. And that's it for what I read this week. Like I said at the start, there's still no TV reviews, and we don't have any listener questions this week. So I just want to say thank you so much to everyone out there who has ever sent in a listener question or comment or topic. It means so much. It's amazing, and I have so much fun answering them. So thank you all, and just thank you for listening in general. It means so much, and it's the most humbling experience in my life. So thank you so much again, and if anyone out there has their own questions, comments, or topics they want to hear discussed on the show, you can always find me on Twitter at THE_SNICKMAN. And I want to give a shout out to the cover artists for the show at DOTEMCEE. Please check them out. They're amazing and give them a follow. They really deserve it. And as always, hope you have a great week. I think Titans starts up again next week, so have a great one and see you again next time.